Still have my ravioli sitting over there.
Are you gonna eat while we do the thing?
I might a little bit. I can't right now. I made too much food and now I'm full.
Oh, okay.
And I can't eat anymore. And I still got some ravioli. So I might be munching on that at some point, depending on how long this goes.
All right.
And it looks like we're going. So hello, everyone. Now I suddenly got paranoid about, okay, yeah, I set everything up properly. So yeah, we're good.
We do a whole 2-hour session that's just for nothing.
Yeah, not doing anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hello, everyone. This is Super Celluloid Bros. This is the, I guess you could call it a video podcast where we talk about movies. And it's pretty relaxed. It's pretty chill around here. We have a good time. I am your host, Disregarding Henry, and I am joined by
your co-host, Bretflix Mazurski. How are you, Henry?
Pretty good. How about you, Bretflix?
Pretty good. I've had a good week. I've had a good day.
Yeah,
just chilling before work. Yeah,
nice.
Haven't done a whole lot. Played video games. I watched a really good movie in preparation for this episode that I think we'll have a lot to talk about. It's one that I think you told me that was like one of your favorite movies. I'd never seen it before. So
really,
yeah. So I think that'll be a good time at least. And also, I need you to shed some light on it for me because the whole time I was just like, "What the fuck?"
I might know what movie it is. Are you still there? Uh-oh. We're running into problems early. Oh, are you back?
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere. Did my camera drop out again?
Yeah, and the sound. And it might have done it again. Oh, there. Maybe you should try to close out and come back.
Okay. All right, just closed out and just came back. Am I here?
Yeah, sort of. Video's choppy, but I can hear you.
Maybe it's just a connection thing or something. My when I got home from work this morning, YouTube was having a hard time loading on my Xbox, so maybe the internet's just real shitty today.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, let's try to get right into it and hope we can get through everything.
Okay. I don't know. What did you catch everything I was saying before it dropped out last?
Yeah, you were saying like you needed help kind of figuring out a certain movie that you watched this week.
Yeah. You said you might know what movie it is. What movie do you think it is?
It might have been a movie that I also rewatched over the last week because it just got added to Netflix.
Yeah, so far you're on the right track. What was it?
Was it Enemy?
How the fuck did you know that?
I don't know.
Wow. They added so many movies to Netflix lately. And I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this movie and surprise him because I know he loves it. And it's like, you're just like, oh, you watched Enemy. Like, did you see my Netflix recently watched? Are you signed into my Netflix?
Nope.
There are thousands of movies on that. I mean, I guess I narrowed it down by saying it was one of your favorites, but that I was not gonna think you'd guess it. Well, okay. Yeah,
I think it
was Enemy.
Yeah, I think it was also because I just rewatched it, so it's still on my brain. So it was kind of like, I wonder if we watched Enemy.
Yeah, no, I literally finished it about an hour ago.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's fresh in your mind.
Yep, it is.
Well, should we do that one first?
Yeah. Let's get into it because it's one I still need to really process what I saw. It's a short movie, but there's just a lot that happens in it, and
especially that ending is really something else
for sure. And I don't like spiders, so when I saw that freaked me out. But I really liked it. I did. I guess I was puzzled by just a lot of the ways that the characters acted in the movie that I'm just like, why are they acting like this? Why don't they just simply say this? Or why are they so freaked out by this? Or, I had a lot of weird questions like that. That made it hard for me to really get into it. I loved Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously. He is amazing in the movie. All the subtle ways he all the subtle differences he has between the two characters he plays in the movie, I thought was really great. What's her name? Melanie Laurent, and the one who played the other the other Jake Gyllenhaal 2's girlfriend. I'm not sure of her
Yeah,
name.
the French actress.
Yeah, the one who's pregnant the whole time.
Oh, that's she's a Canadian actress, Sarah Gadon, I think her name is.
Gadon, okay. I thought they were really excellent too. The whole movie I found very like mesmerizing. You know, there was
Yeah,
like
I was actually
it,
just thinking that before we started the show. I was just thinking about what I would say about enemy, and that's a word that came immediately to mind, was mesmerizing.
yeah, it really is. I mean, from the way it starts, because the photography is so great to look at, and its opening is kind of it catches your attention for sure. I mean, one, because there's naked women, and also it's just like
Yeah.
what is really going on, what's happening, and then I love the opening sequence where, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal one is teaching his class, and you kind of see him go through his daily routine. Just the way all that's edited together, it's really quick, but you definitely get the feeling that he's lonely and he's bored and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I greatly admired how a lot of the movies, the stories seem to be told without dialogue. Like, there is some dialogue, but it's usually like what's not said is where I was able to get most of the story from. I mean, there were whole scenes of just like, oh, you got the wrong kind of blueberries, you know, and obviously that's not what the scene is about. It's, you know, what's really going on in the scene is the pregnant wife is like freaked out that she saw his doppelganger and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of the story is conveyed just kind of through pure filmmaking, I'd say, just through directing, through such a masterful control over tone and atmosphere. And I'm not even exactly, I've seen the movie so many times, and I'm still not even exactly sure how Villeneuve is able to conjure up like such specific emotions and such specific feelings and convey such depth and subtlety in this movie, where, yeah, on the surface, not a lot is happening, and yet you're being conveyed so much through the imagery and just the feeling of the movie. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. So I really admired that about the movie. But like I said, I was confused by some of the way that the Gyllenhaal brothers were reacting with each other. Like,
okay. Think we can do this without spoilers? Because I know a lot of people haven't seen the movie. I brought this up in a stream once, and a lot of people were kind of like, "Don't spoil it." So let's try as much as possible not to spoil.
All right. I won't spoil anything. But okay. So like,
if you need to, I guess we'll just put a warning out there.
Okay. I think I can be subtle enough without spoiling anything, but maybe I'll give just a little warning. Maybe audience members don't want to hear a lot of what I'll say. Yeah. So maybe spoiler alert, maybe not. But like there's the, you know, they when they're in like this hotel room together, and like they're looking at each other, and they become very afraid, and especially the teacher does, and he's like, "Oh, I made a mistake. I need to get out of here." And I remember,
like, you see like his hand shaking in the close-ups.
Right. I'm like, I get it. He's more timid. He's more nervous. The other one is way more confident and assertive and stuff. But like, I just didn't quite get why he was like, "Oh, I gotta get the hell out of here. This was a mistake. It's like, what was the mistake? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? Because why don't you just be like, holy shit, this is nuts? Also, why are you creeping on the guy? Why do you have to go through all these weird lengths to figure out like where he lives? And like you sneak into that building and take his mail and stuff. Like, that's illegal. You can go to jail for that.
Yeah.
Just ask your mother, like, hey, what the hell was I separated from someone at birth? Like, show her pictures. Like, that's not how you do it. Like, why are you creeping on him? I didn't understand that. Another part later, when he's like accusing him, like he's doing like the Robert De Niro from Raging Bull, like, you fucked my wife, my wife. And I was like, why didn't he just say no? Like, just say like, no, I didn't. But then again, did he? Because the way he was responding was just like, oh, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. And you like won't look at him in the eyes. So I'm like, maybe he did, but where was that conveyed to me as an audience member earlier in the movie that this happened? Because they never did at that point, at least that I know of. So why don't you just simply say like, no, I didn't? And why would you then let him cuck you? And I think now I'd probably get into territory where I would definitely spoil things. But I was just kind of frustrated sometimes with the way that people were acting, and I remember thinking, like, just simply do this and everything should be fine. But they didn't. So I had a hard time fully getting into it because of that. If it wasn't for just how well made the movie was and how well acted it was and just how unique of an experience it was, I probably really wouldn't have liked this movie.
Yeah, just in the from the character aspect, like
Yeah. I mean, I guess I get that this is kind of it is a short movie. It's only 90 minutes, and
Mhm.
I think it's very ambitious. It tries to do a lot in that short amount of time. It tries to really get you thinking, and I'm not sure about what, but get you thinking about stuff in that short amount of time. So maybe it's just like, fuck it, we just need these characters to kind of do what we need them to do so we can move on. I don't know. I could accept that. The last act of the movie I was really into, though.
yeah.
For me, yeah. And again, I won't say what's happening, but when all that stuff was happening, I was just very intrigued by it, and it made me forget about earlier frustrations I was having. So then when the movie concluded, I was just like, whoa, that was unlike any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I don't really want to spoil anything about like trying to get into interpretation, because I know this is a movie that a lot of people have interpreted in different ways. Like there's a lot of different ways to read the movie, like that it's supposed to be literal, that there are like two Jake Gyllenhaal characters. There are a lot of metaphorical readings that they're actually the same guy the whole time, and that the movie's kind of about infidelity and a character who just kind of has two sides of himself. There's the timid, shy side, and then there's the other side that is kind of like this kind of like predator almost, kind of looking to cheat and looking to be unfaithful and looking to go to all those weird like sex clubs that you see at the beginning. And that it's kind of about sexuality in that way and just about the character's relationship with women. For me, when I watch the movie, I'm sure for people who like interpreting stuff like that, there's a lot to delve into there. For me, I'm not so analytical, when I watch movies. I don't tend to really think too much about like, what does this symbolize? What does this mean? What are, all of the themes and ideas and messages being conveyed? I tend to watch movies just more on an emotional level, of just wanting to feel things from the story and the filmmaking and the content. So when I watch Enemy, I don't really tend to interpret it very much. I don't really tend to think about what everything means and why everything is happening. I think if you watch it in a very literal way, then yeah, a lot of questions start arising. Like why are the characters behaving like this? Why are they reacting like this? For me, I just kind of watch it almost in like a stream of consciousness sort of state. I don't really question it on the basis of logic. I just kind of take it like a dream, where just one thing leads to another. For some reason, there's an air of tension and unease and dread running through the whole thing that affects all of the characters' behavior. Exactly why I can't say, but when I watch it, I feel that so potently. I feel that dread and that kind of like almost existential terror that's running throughout the entire film. I actually view it as a horror movie, more than anything else. And I think it's one of the most hypnotic horror movies and one of the most unique horror movies I think I've ever seen. And it's one that just, whenever I watch it, I've seen it probably like 6 or 7 times by this point. I still really couldn't tell you what I think it means and what I think the point is or what I think the conclusion is. But it's a movie that every time I watch it, and I even didn't really intend to like fully sit down and watch it when I put it on earlier this week. I was kind of working on some other stuff and I was just like, I just want to put something on in the background. And I saw Enemy was on Netflix and I just put it on. And son of a bitch, when I put that movie on, like it's not even like I get drawn into it or like I get engaged with it like with certain other movies. It's like I put it on and it hypnotizes me. It puts a spell on me and I just can't tear my eyes from the screen. It's just a movie that I get completely lost in every single time. And it's still just as powerful, you know, watching it like the half a dozenth time for me as it was the first time. And it's a movie that just, it never loses any of its potency. And it's a movie that I love more and more each time. And after watching it the last time, I'm firmly convinced it's easily in my top 5 favorite movies of all time.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It is really, really tense. And like, I'm with you when it's like, I don't really care what a movie is trying to say, or maybe like I don't go out of my way to try to figure things out. Like a movie that I have zero understanding of that I love is Videodrome, and I don't know what any of the shit in that movie is supposed to mean, but I've seen it 15 times, and I'll watch it 100 more before I die. And all I know is like in Videodrome, I really love the imagery, even if I don't know what it's saying to me, but I'm still getting reaction out of it. And it's the same thing with Enemy. Like you see the tarantula imagery a couple of times throughout the movie.
Yeah.
You see it, you know, early in the beginning. You see one where it looks like a monster taking over the city, and then and then the very end, and it's like it does something to me. One, just because I don't like spiders, you know. So you see just this fat spider. It's like this big. And in the beginning, you see it's the size of that woman's foot. That's a fucking huge spider. So there's that reaction out of me where I just want to go like, ugh, gross. But it gets a reaction every single time. And I think a lot of the success of a movie like this comes from like the consistency of its tone. I love the music too. The music, it was so understated, almost ambient, not quite ambient, but like for me it had that same sort of effect where I didn't really know like what I was hearing, because the music never was, it never got operatic. It was never like in the foreground. It was just always in the background. It was always very subtle.
And it was never really telling you what to feel.
I had to listen for it to hear it. But music plays pretty consistently throughout this whole movie, and I think adds so much to the experience of it. So I don't know what any of it was going on for, and the tension is palpable.
Yes,
because I can only imagine what that must feel like to like if you saw someone who's out there that's just like you, and I can I don't want to get too personal, but I can sort of understand, because it's like I could potentially have like siblings out there that I don't really know about, and sometimes I think about that, like what would that be like if I were to come across that, and like if I found them on Facebook or something, how strange would that be? And just the thought of the possibility of that is kind of unlike anything else. It's like it makes you just stop and think about it for like hours sometimes. So if you actually saw someone who was your exact opposite, I mean, you have a scar in the same place, you have the same facial hair, facial structure, you know, everything. What would that really be like? And the implications of like I was thinking like the implications of the universe when I saw that shit, because I was just assuming they're probably identical twins, but there's so many similarities that it's got to be something more than that, because they have the same scar in the same place, like even the same voice. They can perfectly mimic each other without even trying it. Identical twins can't do that. They just look similar.
And I think that's exactly what the movie was going for, is not really thinking of the literal possibilities of that situation, but trying to get this sort of like cosmic feeling, like, hold on, what does this mean for my very existence that I've made this discovery? It's kind of like trying to get a full scale of things, not just on the personal scale, but in this kind of like existential scale. I feel when I watch the movie that it's got its headspace kind of in this larger arena than just, you know, two people in a place.
It was like I remember thinking at the end, during the end credits, and I'm like, I'm not sure what just happened. Like, did they meld into one person, or is one of them dead, or did neither of them exist in the first place? I'm just having these all these different thoughts all at once of like what this movie could be about. It's like, you know what? I guess this movie's just kind of about whatever you decide it's about.
Yeah, I think it's in kind of like the same realm as like maybe a Louis Buñuel movie or maybe a David Lynch movie where
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of about tone, you know? It's just about watching and feeling something and having a reaction and not necessarily understanding it, you know, not necessarily being able to put everything into conscious words or like logical interpretation. You just kind of watch it and you feel that uncanny feeling that the movie gives you, you know, like watching Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie or Un Chien Andalou. Like the part of the point is that you can't explain everything away, and that's kind of where a lot of the power of those kinds of movies, or a movie like Eraserhead or Mulholland Drive, I think that's where a lot of the power comes from, is that you can't just explain it all away. There's stuff that just sticks in there that causes like this frisson that you can't get rid of, and it stays in there.
Yeah, I'd also say like something like a Terrence Malick movie, like The Tree of Life, where
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
Very
about
different
feeling.
tone, but
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same thing. When I watch a Terrence Malick movie, it's just like, what do I feel right now? What do I feel this movie is about? Because what you're seeing on screen may not literally be what's happening. And even if it is, you're just getting them in this seemingly just random order, I guess. Just
Yeah.
throwing images at you, yet your feelings are able to kind of piece it all together, and you walk away with somewhat of like an existential understanding, even if not like a literal understanding of what it's about.
Yeah. That's to me like that's all the power of cinema. Like if you could put it exactly into words, then it's not quite fully cinema, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I get a little bit frustrated with that sometimes where you see like all these thousands of videos on like YouTube and other places, like ending to this movie explained, ending to that movie
the
explained.
real meaning of
of this or that, and it's kind of like that's not the point. There shouldn't be just like somebody telling you like, oh, okay, were you confused by this thing and that made you angry? Here, let us lay it all out for you. Like that's not really what, in my mind at least, cinema should be all about. You should be watching and you should just be feeling something. And if you can't put it exactly into words, or you can't like, you know, form like an essayist sort of like analysis of it and be able to articulate everything, like that's okay, just as long as you're feeling. And even if you stumble over yourself trying to explain it, like as long as that emotional reaction is there, to where like, yeah, if you're watching a Terrence Malick movie and you can't quite connect the images together in a literal sense, there is kind of like an emotional continuity running through everything. And for me, like watching Enemy, there's something emotionally that carries me through all the way to where I'm not really asking any questions when I watch that movie. And I'm sure a lot of people when they do watch a movie like that are having endless questions, you know, about everything. But when I watch it, like my brain just kind of shuts off in a certain way. And I'm just like, this is perfect. This is flawless. This is amazing. This is a movie that makes me feel so profoundly in a way that no other movie makes me feel. This is such a unique achievement. This is part of what like the mastery of cinematic storytelling is in my mind. It's kind of like a perfect reflection of that. Like if I were to make a movie and it could be as good as it could possibly be, like in my wildest dreams, if I had that kind of power and vision, like I would want to say that I made a movie like Enemy. That's exactly my like wildest dream, is to one day be able to make a movie like that is just pure cinema, you know, pure feeling and emotion with almost no logic.
I believe
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think the most you can do with a movie like this is like, if you are going to come up with a literal interpretation, is just to know that that's just your personal interpretation.
Yeah. And that there's never a right answer.
Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, there's been a couple movies where I've come up with like weird things. I don't know if other people have got the same thing out of that movie as I did. Like with Scorsese's Who's That Knocking at My Door, like I have a theory that the girl doesn't exist and she's entirely in Harvey Keitel's head and no one else sees her. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie, so I'd really have to watch it again before I could back a lot of that up. But that's always like the feeling I've got from it. So that's kind of what I take away from the movie, and I'm sure that when most people watch it, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just Harvey Keitel and his relationship with this woman. That's all it is. Yeah. I'm like, no, dude, it's all in his head, man. Like,
yeah, if that's what you get out of it, then nobody can tell you you're wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's the fun thing about movies, and I feel like too many people have it in their heads that like if they can't follow something, then it's like, well, shit, now I'm dumb, and now and now I don't understand everything, and I can't connect A to B to C. Like sometimes movies don't have to be like that, you know? If I'm fully honest, like most of the movies I watch, I'm not able to connect A to B to C. Like, even if they're completely linear and completely plot oriented, like my attention wanders a lot of the time during most movies, and I'll miss like crucial details, and I'll find myself, you know, paying attention to something again. It's like, oh wait, how'd they get here? What's this person doing? Whatever. I'm just going to keep watching.
Yeah. I think, well, like for me, when I'm watching a movie, I'll pay attention to different things than just the plot. Like for me, the plot is supposed to just be a hook to hang everything else on. Because if you want a story, then you might as well just like read it or have someone tell you like, hey, did you hear about that time when that super spy went and like disarmed this bomb? Like, let me tell you all about it. That you might as well just do that if all you want is a story. But like, there's so many more layers to movies that make movies so unique from other ways to tell stories that I feel like I'm typically paying attention more to those.
Yeah, I'm more. I would agree with you. I'm more focused on just like the power of individual moments.
Yeah, another Villeneuve. I don't know is that how you say his name? Villeneuve. I
would say yes. Yeah, Villeneuve.
Okay. Another movie. The only other movie of his that I've seen is Blade Runner 2049, and honestly, that's kind of how I felt during a lot of that movie. Was I didn't really know what was happening from moment to moment, but I just was so into the effects and the cinematography and the music and everything about it. Just like the tone that the movie has. The same thing with Enemy. It has an amazing tone that just sucks you in.
Yeah. Same thing with the original Blade Runner.
Yeah, exactly. So like there were a couple moments like when he's talking with Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling's talking with Harrison Ford. I remember thinking like, oh shit, what are they talking about again? Okay. Like I was just more into like the fight that they had and how well staged that was and how well it was edited, stuff like that.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same boat as you. Like I don't understand like most of. I guess since I'm on YouTube, I notice that a lot, and it's kind of put me in sort of like a position where I'm trying to figure out like what my place is, you know, like on YouTube as far as like being a film critic or however one would define me. Because like I look at what other stuff put out, or I look at the stuff that other people put out, and like it's just not really where my mindset is at all, you know, where it's and I tried to do that for the longest time, and it didn't make me happy, you know. It didn't really satisfy me. Like I'm not the person that can write an analysis. I tried that, like I did a Videodrome like sort of video essay where I tried to be really analytical and pick everything apart, and I think I made a good video. Like I'm proud of that, but like I don't really want to do that again because it's a lot of work, and it's not really fun for me. And then to look at other stuff like YouTube videos that are all kind of about, look at all these plot inconsistencies that are in this thing, and look at all these continuity errors, and look at or like a CinemaSins video, which I guess is more tended to be comedic than serious. But then you look at other stuff like 5 plot holes in this movie that you didn't notice, like all kinds of stuff like that. Just nitpicking and finding all these little things. It's like, why? It's such a surface way to analyze a movie, to just look at everything that's kind of been spoon-fed to you, like on the surface of the film, and to not try to look any deeper than that. Like, what does it make you feel? Why does it make you feel that? What are the techniques being used to convey a certain sort of tone, a certain sort of emotion? Like, that's the meat for me. That's the stuff I'm really interested in.
Yeah, you could take on any movie with that sort of critical eye and just be like, oh, this is wrong, this doesn't work, this is stupid. It's no movie. Well, like no movie's perfect, so no movie is going to be impenetrable in any degree. So you might as well just kind of give up thinking about that kind of stuff. And like whenever I approach like movie reviews on my channel, it's just so off the cuff, or just I just let it flow. Like I don't plan out what I'm going to say. I don't do anything. I don't write anything, because I just think that would take so much of the fun out of it. My next video, I was editing it last night. I decided to do a quick video on The Village, the Shyamalan movie.
Oh, interesting.
The whole time I'm thinking like, I'm just rambling, but I feel like I've said everything I want to say about the movie. There's so much more that could be said, but everything I want to say and everything I'm feeling when I watch it, I feel like I've said here. So I ramble. I'm not focused on any point. Fuck it, it's done.
Their style.
Yeah.
I still find myself like kind of messing myself up in a certain way. Like I've been talking about like doing the top 5 Scorsese movies. Like I've kind of had to step away from that because I was getting too much in a headspace of like, okay, now I have to say this, I have to mention this about this movie. And at a certain point, I totally forgot that it was just supposed to be like, what are the things I want to say? And what are the things that I feel when I watch these movies? Not what other people say, not, this or that, just what are the thoughts and the feelings I have on a personal level watching these movies. And so I've kind of just had to step back from it. And I think I'm just going to give myself a break from it for a little while so I can just come at it again and just kind of forget all that other stuff I was trying to encompass, in this dumb little YouTube video, and just make it about what I actually want it to be about, stuff that I think and feel, that I actually have some kind of like, that I actually have some kind of desire to communicate to other people, and not just repeat, what I'm hearing other people say, because that's not fun.
Yeah, I always wish like I had like some sort of laptop or something that I could use that had some good editing software. So like when I do my videos, I could include like clips or put like pictures over me talking, like all kinds of stuff like that. And I still do wish I had that, but I'd have to really keep that in check, because I feel like that would get in the way of how I really like to do things. Like it would probably take a little too much planning than I want to do. And so I'd have to like think like, oh, I want to include this and this and this. So the stuff I say is going to have to kind of revolve around that in these parts. And maybe I could find a way to still be consistent with the way I like to do it and include other things. But I would worry that if I had more resources, then I would just kind of lose track of why I even want to do videos on YouTube in the first place. Like,
the more stuff I do, the more time goes on, the more I just want to do things that are fun for me, because I spent the first few years doing this really thinking about it as a job, and that I had to do a certain amount of work, and that didn't matter if I wasn't having fun, because I got to put work into it, because that's how you make a lot of money off of YouTube. And that was pretty much most of the motivation at first, was just to try to make money. Very quickly you realize like, oh, only a few people actually make money at this.
Yeah.
And that if you should be in it for any reason, it should be because it's fun. Because I already have a job that pays my bills. I really don't need a second job. And so now, really the only way I approach it is just like, if I'm having fun, I'm going to keep working on it. If I'm not having fun, then I don't need another job. Filmmaking is the thing that's fun for me, that I put all the extra creative effort into. And for YouTube videos, I'm just not really there anymore to where I want to devote like 40 plus hours, per week to this stuff. It's just, it's not what I really feel is my calling.
Yeah. I would love to make money off of YouTube. I would much rather like do stuff for YouTube than work at a gas station, of course.
Yeah.
But But again, if money is your aim, then you're going to find yourself kind of selling yourself out and doing things you don't like to do.
Yeah.
And I've already done that a tiny little bit. Because I remember thinking like, oh, what's a good way to get more views on a video, or what's a good way to try to get more subscribers or something. And I did a video on the James Gunn movie Super. And and I remember like, ooh, what's a good like clickbaity title I can use? And my title, and I've embarrassed to even repeat it, but my title is like, why you should skip Marvel's Infinity War, like hoping that would get people to click on the video. And I'm so glad that it didn't work because if it did, I would still be doing that. And every time I see that title, I kind of cringe to myself. I'm like, that's not me. That's not really reflective of like the content itself. I do talk a little bit about Marvel in the video, but like that wasn't the point of my video. I wasn't trying to say like, you need to not watch Marvel movies. You need to watch Super instead. I did not say that. So the fact that I titled it that just to try to get clicks and views and subs, I'm just kind of disappointed in myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to change it because I think it's a good reminder just to do it as honest as possible. Like only do it the way you enjoy it. That's why I'm not crapping videos out. I only do videos like kind of when I'm up for it. That results in maybe one every couple weeks, sometimes one a month. And they're short videos. They're like 10 to 20 minute videos and they take almost no time to do. But it's like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, same here. Once I start getting into that mindset of feeling the pressure to like deliver on deadlines, it stops being fun and it just becomes work in my mind. And then I lose all the motivation to do it. And now at this point where I'm working a job, trying to pay bills, and trying to do filmmaking on the side when I'm able to, just putting that together is a lot of work. It's a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. And then also feeling like, oh, I have to be delivering YouTube videos like once a week or this many times a month on top of that. I'm just going to drive myself insane. I'm going to burn out so quickly trying to do that. So, I got the filmmaking, which I want to focus on. I got the job, which I have to do. And YouTube can just be a fun aside that I have from that whenever I feel like doing it. And I just can't put myself in the mindset anymore where like I feel like it is a job where I have to deliver, a certain amount of things in a certain amount of time. Because then it's not going to be something that I'll actually get anything out of in that case.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to kind of restate the same points. That it'll just become work at that point. It won't be fun. And then what's the point of doing it at that point?
I have a really bad habit of just kind of procrastinating and putting things off and instead of doing with stuff I really want to do, I'll just do whatever is easier or more fun. So I have to make sure that if I'm putting off YouTube videos, it's because I just don't want to do it and not because I'm being lazy. Because it is, video games, there's just a lot more instant gratification to a video game than watching a movie. With a video game, you play like a 10-minute match and you did well or you did bad, but you got like your fix in 10 minutes. With a movie, it's going to take a couple hours before you get your fix. With a video, it's however long it takes to shoot and edit and upload and all that stuff before you get your fix. So I know sometimes I'll just simply not do something I want to do and instead just like play video games or something. So I have to make sure, I have to like be real with myself and think like, all right, am I putting this off just because I don't want to do it? Being honest with yourself is very important. I think.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah. I definitely have those days where I just don't have the energy. I just rather like watch The Simpsons on Hulu or Bob's Burgers or something rather than.
I don't blame you for that.
Rather than put any work towards anything. I mean, some days are like that. I still, have days where I get depressed and I just don't have the energy to do something. And I just, let myself kick back that day. And then hopefully next day I have a little bit more energy to work on some stuff.
Yeah. That'll happen with me sometimes.
Yeah, I'm just through stressing out, I've spent a lot of years just stressed out of my mind, feeling like I have to, figure my shit out right now and get some kind of career plan and career goal going right now. Otherwise, my life will be wasted. And you really can't enjoy your own life, and you can't enjoy your own day-to-day experience when that's hanging over you constantly. So I'm really just trying to take it easier just in general, and I'm really just trying to take it easier on myself now, you know. I really don't want to get back into that sort of mindset where I just can't relax and I can't be happy, you know.
It's difficult because I go through that crisis like 10 times a day. Like I'm 25 already and I've accomplished nothing. And life is short, you know. It's 80 years, maybe not even that. That's not a lot of time.
Yeah, if you're lucky. And
time goes by faster and faster as you get older.
God, it does.
So yeah, it really does. I mean the jump from 15 to 20 felt like it took 10 times longer than 20 to 25.
Yeah, and high school felt like an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I've gone through more than that amount of time, and just like that in my 20s.
Yeah. And so I because of that, I do feel like anxious and like I need to get going. Like I got to fucking do something right now. Like I just got to get up and get out. But I get a little more relaxed when I remember like things do take time, and most filmmakers don't even make movies till they're in their 30s anyway. So it's a process, and you got to go through the steps. I think Michael Mann didn't make his first movie till he was in his 40s or some shit like that.
Yeah, so, he also did a lot of like TV work though.
Yeah, that's true. But still, like it takes time, and he didn't make feature films, so he was in his 40s, and he now has like a body of work that he's like known for. So if I'm 25, maybe that'll be like my part where I really need to just get out there. So I got 15 more years left. I don't know. I just need to not put that much pressure on myself and just try to take it easy. But then I think, well, I've taken it too easy all these years. I shouldn't take it easy.
Yeah, you got to find that balance between being able to relax, being able to take it easy, being able to enjoy yourself and be happy, but also to feel that motivation and a little bit of a stress, a little bit of, you know, desire to every day, you know, be working at something. You know, if you've got a dream, if you've got a goal, you got to be chipping away at that somehow. And I feel like now I am, you know, since I'm in a filmmaking area and I'm putting together my own movies and I'm making things happen now, I feel like at least I'm doing something. I'm not setting the world on fire. I would like to have already made a feature film by this point, but it hasn't happened yet. And that's okay. I'm still working. I'm still taking steps, you know, and I can take comfort in that, at least, rather than just beat myself up like, man, I should have made like this many videos by this point. I should have directed this many shorts and this many features. It's like, what good does that do me? You know, that time's already gone. And I'm not going to be able to appreciate the time I have now if I'm just focused on all that lost time. So, I mean, just got to be in the moment. Learn from the past.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little afraid to fail, but it's like if I were to try and fail, I don't think I'd really be angry about that. Like if I'm 50 or if I'm 80 and I think like, man, all those years I tried to make movies, I wasn't able to make one of them. I don't think that would upset me as much as thinking like I could have been trying and I didn't, you know?
Yeah.
So just do it. Nike, just fucking do it.
Yeah. This episode sponsored by Nike.
Yes, exactly. We're getting rich now. I think with anything, you'll always be just more proud of the times you tried and failed than the times you just didn't try at all and didn't get anywhere. My nephew, it was weird. The other day I was eating lunch and my nephew asked me, Brett, what's your biggest regret in life? And I told him my biggest regret was all the times I had a crush on a girl like at school and I didn't tell her about it. Because like, why not? Especially now at this point where no one would care. I was just too afraid to get shut down. And now I like think like what could have happened if I did just have the balls to say, hey, I like you. You want to go to the movies on Friday? And then all the times where I did have the balls and ask and got shut down, I don't really think about those times because it's like, well, I did what I could. You can't do much more than that. So I'll take that life lesson and apply it to everything else. And hopefully that gets me somewhere.
Yeah. I think fear of failure kept me from trying for the longest time too. And now, you know, I've more or less gotten over that. I don't think anybody ever totally gets over it. I think everybody's afraid of failing to a certain extent, but you just can't let it. You just can't let that overwhelm your desire to want to pursue your dreams or to try what you really want to try, you know? And certainly, yeah, in my mind, it was like, well, if I can't make a perfect movie, then what's the point of even trying to make a movie? And now, you know, I'm in the process of making a short film right now. We've shot 2 days and I've made so many mistakes and I wish the movie could be so much better, but it's been like joyous. Like all the mistakes I've made mean so little to me compared to what I have gotten. And, you know, working with the actors and being surprised by things that I wasn't expecting and making a discovery where like, oh, it's better if I do it this way. So it's not perfect. And I messed up as a director in a lot of ways, but it was so great just to be able to do it. I don't really care about the stuff I messed up on. I'll do better next time, but I did it and I got all those great things out of it. And that's the important thing. That's why I'm pursuing it, for that high, that rush of just making a scene come to life. It's exhilarating. I love it.
Yep. You get life lessons on this show. I think people tune in to know what we think of movies and for them to steer them in the right direction.
Yes. It's hard not to talk about, especially at this point in my life. I feel like I'm making new discoveries every day. And it's hard not to want to just preach to everybody, this is what you should be doing.
Yeah, just that. Yeah, for me, it's just like every step of the way, I'm like, everyone just needs to be honest with themselves, and they need to take chances and blah blah blah. It's like I should have been listening to that advice 50 years ago.
Yeah, it does take a while for that kind of stuff to sink in, doesn't it? And then once it does, it's like, oh, it's so obvious. Why isn't everybody doing this?
Yeah. Am I the only smart one? God. Everyone's dumb except for me.
That's the way it always is.
Yeah, it's always been that way. No one's ever been able to reach my level of smartness. Whatever.
Do they have any other movies you want to talk about?
No, that was my pick for this week.
That was your pick? Okay.
Yep.
What else did I watch? Yeah, I did rewatch Enemy, which we talked about. I did some Netflix browsing over this last week. I rewatched the end of the tour. You ever seen that?
Mm-mm.
Do you know the movie?
I'm not sure. Not offhand.
It's the one with Jason Segel and Jesse Eisenberg.
I don't know it.
It's from like 2015. I think the director was James Ponsoldt. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I haven't seen any of his other movies. End of the Tour is the only one. He's got like a handful of films that he did, mostly like indie stuff. End of the Tour is the only movie of his I've seen. But damn, that is a great movie. It really is. I loved it the first time I saw it, and rewatching it again, I loved it even more. It's an amazing film. It's only a couple years old. It just got added to Netflix. It's from like 2015. And it's about David Foster Wallace. Do you know who that is? He's an author. He was an author. I just got his book at Powell's the other night. Infinite Jest. This is kind of like the book that he's most well known for. This is like his legendary thing. It's gigantic.
I was going to say, that looks pretty big.
It's one of the longest works of fiction ever published.
How many pages?
This edition is 1,079 pages.
Wow. Is the text really small, too?
God, it is so small. But it's kind of like this gigantic, like epic comic existential satire. And it was published in 1996, I think, and it's kind of considered like this landmark novel, like a work that kind of changed American fiction permanently. And it became a bestseller, and Wallace kind of became like this overnight celebrity and was hailed as a genius, kind of became legendary almost immediately. And he was only like 35, I think, maybe younger. Wow. And he basically never published another book for the rest of his life. And in 2008, I believe, he committed suicide. He was only like 46. Jeez. Yeah, and never published another work of fiction after that. So yeah, he was a guy, very tragic life, incredibly gifted, but yeah, suffered from depression, was intensely shy, was very private, didn't really give a lot of interviews. And the movie, The End of the Tour, Jason Segel plays David Foster Wallace. And this is the first movie that's ever portrayed Wallace in a fictional context. This is the first movie that's ever been made about him. And it's based on a true story of this guy, David Lipsky, who's a Rolling Stone writer. He spent like 5 days with David Foster Wallace, interviewing him for Rolling Stone magazine. And they basically just spent 5 days of Lipsky following Wallace on his book tour. And they just had this long conversation over those 5 days where they kind of like what we do, like just talking about everything in their lives, like all their kind of like viewpoints on things, their like life philosophies, kind of like the things they've observed, you know, and human behavior and what it all means. And it's kind of like this. It's kind of like this My Dinner with Andre, just sort of like epic length conversation that takes place over this certain period of time. And Lipsky published these interviews or this conversation in a book in like 2010 after Wallace committed suicide. And that book is what inspired this movie. And so, yeah, it's just the two of them having this really long conversation about all these different subjects and just kind of about life in general. And it's amazing. It's one of those movies that like, yeah, just takes conversation to an art form, kind of like My Dinner with Andre, where you get so wrapped up in these guys and the things they talk about and the subjects they touch on. And it's so well done. It's, I think, really just for movies about like male bonding and male friendship, this is one of the best I've ever seen, you know? I think it's so honest and it's so observant, you know, about the way like guys interact, like of how there's kind of like, there's some ego, there's a little bit of like vulnerability, like each is trying to impress the other and they're kind of guarded at first, but then there's those moments where the guard drops and you become like really vulnerable and scared, and then it kind of goes back up and you get a little bit jealous of each other. It's like, well, you published your book, well, I'm publishing my book. and it kind of becomes, you know, like a pissing contest in some parts, and then other parts where, yeah, the guard drops again and it's like, dude, I feel the exact same way, but it's expressed so much more eloquently. But like, I find it so relatable, you know, the whole way it observes these characters' interactions, and the performances are just amazing, especially Jason Segel. Like, he's a revelation in this movie. Like, he's been great in everything I've seen him in. Like, what's that movie? Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Yeah. He's great in that one. What's the other one?
I Love You, Man.
Yeah, that one too. He's great in that one. Again, great movies, you know, just about guys and emotional intimacy between guys. Like, the best version I've ever seen of that is The End of the Tour. And Segel is just like, I think really delivers the best work of his career so far. It's amazing the way he kind of like vanishes into that character and brings Wallace to life. It feels, I don't actually know that much about Wallace. I just started reading Infinite Jest, but like watching the movie, like it really feels like he captured something so truthful about that guy. And you barely even recognize him watching this movie. He's so like in that character. It's amazing work. It really is.
Yeah, not enough movies just rely on well, maybe that's kind of a weird way to put it, because I think too many movies rely only on dialogue to tell stories and stuff. But like that's mostly cases where dialogue is just expositional, just overly explaining everything.
It's just like, we're doing this and now we're going here to do this.
But not like interesting dialogue. Like a lot of directors just have great, or writers, I should say, have great ears for the way people talk, and they can just encapsulate characters with just words, even though those words are just casual conversations about whatever. Um, and you think like My Dinner with Andre is probably the most famous example of something like that. But also like the Before trilogy, where it's just
Oh,
two
hell
people,
yeah.
just
Yeah,
two people
yeah.
talking for like 90 minutes, and that's your whole movie. And even stuff like Kevin Smith movies, it's just people
Yeah.
having conversations with each other about all kinds of weird things, but you love to listen to them talk because there's so much like music in the dialogue. It's
Yeah, and
not boring.
there's so many ideas being conveyed, so many emotions and subtleties, and yeah, like a specific voice being expressed. And that's really what you get from like End of the Tour, especially, that you're getting two really unique voices like interacting. And like it's one of the best like just pure like dialogue movies I've ever seen. And it's not really flamboyant. It's not like Quentin Tarantino where they're talking in this really highly stylized way. It's not like, other movies where it's like it's extremely dense and intellectual. Like it's fairly casual conversation, but like the whole way it's structured, the way it's directed, the way it's acted, like it's one of those movies where you get as wrapped up in people talking as you could possibly get wrapped up in watching people talk. It's incredibly well done. And I appreciated it even more the second time. Just like, damn, they really knocked this one out of the park. It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to act, and when you just have so much dialogue to give, it's hard to give like good performances like that. I mean, I've been with
Yeah.
all the acting I've done. I've always been so glad that there's a lot of physicality that's needed to be done with all my roles that I've had. Where it's like, okay, I don't need to say anything here. I just need to run and just
Yeah. Yeah.
run and like just scream if I need to make noises. It's kind of a relief. So when you're just talking, especially when it's not about like really intense things, when it's just supposed to be casual conversations, you become very aware as an actor of like all your little twerks and stuff. Like you think, how can I seem naturalistic in this moment? And
Yeah.
that is, I know we've talked about this before, but that has got to be the hardest thing, at least that I've ever experienced acting before. So to see like 2 hours or whatever that just straight of
Yeah.
only that, it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, even like if you're talking about 120-page script that's like where you're talking pretty much on every page, just memorizing that can be intimidating in itself. But to get the music of it, to make it really take off and become something else, where you're getting all the emotion, you're getting all the subtlety, you're finding all the moments where you can invest it with authenticity and truthfulness and observation. Like it's got to be some tricky stuff, but I gotta say, like, End of the Tour is one of the best examples I can think of that. Like, it's up there with the Before movies. It's up there with My Dinner with Andre. It's one of the best films about just conversation that I've ever seen. It's great.
Yeah, there another one where it's just people talking is Cosmopolis. Remember
Very
that
different,
movie?
but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's kind of different, where it's like everything they're saying is about like philosophical ideas, and it's
Yeah.
heavy conversation. And I mean, it's not the most well done, but it's an interesting movie still.
It is, yeah. That's one I do like.
Yeah.
It's a polarizing film. Some people hate it, some people like it. I'm definitely on the positive side. I
Right.
like how weird it is. And, yeah.
Oh,
How
it's
like
it's
deliberately
super
artificial it is.
weird. So like, and I can appreciate that movie, and just how hard it is to direct dialogue too. I remember listening to John Carpenter's commentary on The Thing, and he said the hardest scene for him, or the hardest scenes for him to direct in that whole movie, were the dialogue scenes, because he's like, where do I have everyone stand? Where do I put my cameras? Like how do I shoot all this dialogue and still make it like visually interesting when you're not, when all you're given to work with is just like people standing and talking. So how do you shoot that when you don't want to just do over the shoulders? Like, how do you shoot that? And that has to be a nightmare. And like, originally, you know, because the thing is so effects heavy and stuff, I would have been like, oh yeah, shoot, all those effects must have been a pain in the ass. But the way he made it seem was like that was the easy part because the effects fucking speak for themselves.
Yeah.
You point the camera right at it, and this spider head goes, and like it's already interesting visually. He's like, I don't have to do anything, but the dialogue I do. So when I see movies that are very heavy with dialogue, that has to be a nightmare to shoot, whether it be Cosmopolis or End of the Tour. It's like I can't imagine how you would approach material like that as a filmmaker. I wouldn't even want to try.
I did a little bit of that. I did a short where I never wound up finishing it, but it was basically like these 3 like really long passages of dialogue, and it's kind of just like 3 scenes all in a row of just these 2 guys talking to each other in a car. And I found like just directing it from my point of view, I got really bored because I didn't really do a lot of planning or coverage. It was just kind of like, we'll just do this in 3 shots. We'll do a master and then we'll do a close up on each actor. And I got so bored. It was just like, okay, we got to get through this take. So we have this angle, and then, okay, now let's get this take from this angle. And I realized like, this is not the way I want to make movies, just pointing and getting what I need. So on the short I'm doing now, I've taken a very different approach of really trying to break it down and figure out like what piece of the story I'm trying to tell in what way, you know, kind of with each choice of setup. Because yeah, just being like that, where it's like, oh, we'll just do this in a master, we'll just do this in a close-up, just run through the whole thing. It's just like, I'm so bored right now.
Yeah, because you got to watch it so many times.
Yeah.
It's like that when you rehearse stage plays, because you run through those scenes 1,000 times and it becomes so stale. And it's really difficult. I mean, even when you're performing the whole thing, you perform it so many nights over so many weekends. It's difficult to keep it fresh for yourself. So like when in one day, when you have to listen to the same dialogue and point the camera from this angle for like 2 hours, then from this angle for 2 hours, that would just melt your brain, I would assume. I couldn't handle that. And with like, I remember when we were making Days of the Dead, feeling a lot of
I just rewatched
fatigue.
That today. I showed it to some coworkers at the coffee shop. Yeah.
What'd they think?
They liked it. They thought it was really good.
Yeah, but there were some dialogue scenes that took forever to shoot. And I mean, and in the movie they're like 2 minutes long, but it took us hours to shoot it. I remember there was one sequence where when the zombies are walking across the front of the car, that took like 8 hours to shoot because like we couldn't block off that part of the road. So like every time the car came, we had to like move aside. And so that took so long and was so boring, and I hated every second of it. I mean, it ended up to be something I'm really proud of. I still love watching that movie, but
yeah, I think it still works. It's oddly prescient too.
Yeah, for sure. But man, it's making movies is kind of boring. But it is a rewarding process.
Yeah, I did make a discovery, at least from doing that first short, of I figured out more what kind of a director I am. That I want to be selfless and I want to kind of like give it over to actors. I want, to be a collaborator at the very least, but I kind of discovered that I'm not somebody that can just point a camera at an actor and just let them go and do their thing. Like I need to engage in some way and be playing a part in the scene as well. And so doing the short I'm doing now, I tried to make a lot more deliberate choices in that way of like, what is the camera doing here? Like in what way am I engaging with this part of the scene? So that way I can be more focused. I can feel like I'm a participant and not just waiting until all the footage is ready to go. And so I can call that. Like that's boring for me. I'm not that kind of director. I'm the kind of director that is like, how am I engaged in this scene along with the actors? And so doing this one, I've just been having constant fun, just throughout the whole day. Like, this is great. This is how I want to do it. So, but that's good. That's the importance of mistakes, and failing, is that you learn something.
Yeah, for sure. Like a movie that's very dialogue heavy yet very interesting visually to me that I want to give a quick shout out to is Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory. Like, oh yeah, for me that's how you make a dialogue heavy movie. Because there's a lot of emotion and stuff and a lot of people yelling in that movie. So it's probably easier to motivate your camera to move around and shit in that one. But I'm very impressed with how Kubrick made that, because characters are moving and they're talking, and the blocking is so complex, and the camera weaves in and out of all of that. And even though the whole movie is just Kirk Douglas saying soldiers have PTSD, it's very visually stimulating, you know. So like,
Yeah, he did some brilliant stuff. Yeah, in the staging of that one, like the whole trial scene of how he had like the checkered floor and he tried to arrange it like a chess game. He has all those high angles kind of showing the soldiers as like chess pieces on that whole floorboard. That's like some brilliant stuff that kind of gives another level of like these soldiers just being pawns in this pointless game. It's like ingenious stuff that Kubrick did with that one.
Yeah, I've never like directed a short before, but I'd like to think that if I were to direct something, that's how I would want to do it. Like, just, you know, really put your camera in the action, make it a part of the scene, not just make it observe the scene. Which there's something to be said for that kind of style. I do like movies that are like that, but
yeah,
that's
but
just,
it
I don't
has
think
to.
that's how I would do it. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to come from something that you're feeling of like, this is how I want to watch the scene. You know, I just want to see it. Like if you're like a Steve McQueen or a Jim Jarmusch, like I just want to put my camera here and let the whole scene play out from this angle. And that is how it is speaking to me. That is how I want to see it. Like for me, I don't think I could ever do that. Maybe it depends on the scene.
Right.
But for me, for the most part, like what my gut would be telling me is like, I want to get closer. I want to get here. I want to go over there. I want to move the camera in this spot. You know, it really does depend on the material, but like I've kind of discovered through trying to do that like those aren't my gut instincts. You know, I want something else. I want to be partaking in it. But that's a great discovery to make, you know, to realize that like, okay, now I have a strategy, you know, for when I do this stuff.
Yeah. Every time I've watched footage of something that I've filmed, and because you just mentioned gut instinct, it just reminded me that I oftentimes I don't know what my gut instinct is. It just happens. I remember me and Dana filmed a wedding for a friend of ours like 4 or 5 years ago, and every time I've seen some of the footage from that and I'm watching like the stuff that I shot, I remember thinking like, I wonder why I just started pacing to the left right here. I don't know why I did that. I could have just stayed where I was, but in the moment when I was filming, I was like, I just got to start moving this way. I just got to do it, and I just went with it, and now, especially years later, I can't really explain why, but it felt right.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to work, is just in that creative way. You know, again, I don't think there needs to be so much logic to it.
Yeah.
If your emotions or your gut or your instincts or whatever it is are telling you to do something, then you should do it, you know? Like when I'm writing, like if I write some weird thing if I like it, you know, even if it doesn't really make a lot of sense or if it doesn't fit in with other stuff, like if it feels right to me, even if my head is telling me like that doesn't belong there, if it just feels right for whatever reason, then I'll just leave it in there. Or if I find some weird angle or an actor does something interesting, then yeah, you just got to go with what your instincts are telling you. Like, I like that. Let's go with it. You know, if you start questioning it too much, then you start getting into Kubrick territory where you're doing 200 takes and taking 4 years to make a movie.
and then after it's made, you scrap it and make it all over again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Not everyone has that luxury.
Yeah. That movie though, like, would you say like how was it shot? I mean, was there a lot of camera movement or was there a lot of editing?
Which movie?
The end of the tour.
It's mostly handheld from what I recall. I guess it has sort of a medium editing pace. It's kind of hard to pick apart. I was mostly just listening to it more than actually looking at it. But it didn't. It almost kind of seemed like a Dogma 95 sort of thing, where it was very kind of chaotic. The camera was sort of all over the place. I don't know how they shot it, but it felt very loose. You know, it didn't really feel like there were a lot of like setups and kind of like, okay, the camera definitely needs to be here. It felt kind of loose and free form, like they were just kind of like trying to do it in the way that felt most natural. So they were kind of going all over the place. I don't think I've ever quite seen a movie like that. Like, it didn't feel like a Lars von Trier movie, you know, where it's really, really rough and kind of breaking all the rules. It felt a little more structured than that, a little more thought out than that. Which isn't to say Lars von Trier isn't thought out, but you know, he's purposefully very chaotic. End of the Tour didn't quite feel that chaotic, but it did feel very loose and spontaneous to capture that sort of like just naturalism, you know, and that realism. So I can't quite pick it apart, you know, in a complete way. I'd probably have to watch it a couple more times to really be able to do that. But like it's mostly handheld, and it feels very free form, where like the camera is kind of going all over the place. It's not just like they're sitting at a table, camera's here, close up, close up. It's not like that. The camera's kind of like moving around a lot through edits, through movements. So it's really interesting. It's really dynamically filmed.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I'd recommend that to anybody who has Netflix. Give The End of the Tour a watch. And even if you don't know who David Foster Wallace is, like this movie will be a great introduction.
Yeah, that's a couple great recommendations. So The End of the Tour and Enemy are both on Netflix, so it's very easy to get a hold of both of those because everyone has Netflix. So.
Pretty much at this point, yeah.
Or you know someone who does and steal their password.
Yeah. I saw another one on Netflix too that I liked.
What's that?
It's called Life After Beth. Have you ever heard of this one?
Oh, I have heard of that one. I've heard the name. I don't know. I know I haven't seen the movie. But I've heard of it. Yeah.
Well, it's basically like a zombie romantic comedy.
Yeah, and like that's right. And then like he's in a relationship with the zombie, or it's like a guy in a relationship with the zombie.
Yeah, it stars Dane DeHaan, I think his name is. He plays this kind of young guy that is dating this girl who dies. And the opening scenes are kind of like her funeral and the few days like following her death. And he's kind of like grieving and devastated and realizing there are all these things he wanted to say to her that he never got the chance to say. And then one day she just kind of like shows up again and is alive again and appears to be more or less normal. And nobody can quite explain it. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And at first he's kind of like overjoyed, like, oh, now we can pick up where we left off and I can finally say all these things. But as time goes on, she kind of starts deteriorating mentally and physically. And it starts becoming apparent that she is a zombie and that there is some kind of zombie apocalypse happening because more and more people start coming back. And very slowly the whole thing kind of descends into chaos. It's a very unusual movie. The guy that made it, his name is Jeff Baena, which I don't know if you know that name. He's a relatively new filmmaker. He's done a couple movies. Life After Beth was his first movie. And then he also did this movie Joshi, which is this kind of like micro budget, I think entirely improvised movie that he shot in just like a couple days with some friends. I think that one's still streaming on Hulu. I've seen that one. It's very good. I really like that movie. It's very funny, and I think also has some really poignant moments in it too. Joshi, I think, is an underrated one. I'd recommend checking that one out on Hulu. And he also did most recently the movie The Little Hours. Have you heard of that one?
I don't know.
It's based on the Decameron, and it's kind of like this comedy with like John C. Reilly and Aubrey Plaza and Molly Shannon, Fred Armisen.
It's a great cast.
Yeah, Dave Franco, a bunch of other people too. And yeah, it's basically like it's set in a nunnery, and
cool.
You're a nun's convent. Yeah, and it's just kind of about the nuns behaving very badly. And it's based off of a work of medieval literature. So it's this very bizarre combination of like European art house movie and lowbrow American comedy.
Nice.
Yeah, but I do like it. I don't know if that one's streaming anywhere. It might be on Amazon, I think, possibly on Hulu. But I think that one's also worth a look. I like that one. And I'd seen both of those movies, and Life After Beth, his first movie, is the only one I hadn't seen. And so I finally watched that one, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. He's got a very unusual style. He does a lot of improv, and yeah, he kind of does things in a really loose way, and seems to be the kind of director that just kind of like lets his actors kind of do what they want. So he typically like finds really good actors who can really take control of their characters and make a lot of weird decisions. He works with a lot of comedians. He's worked with John C. Reilly a couple times. John C. Reilly's in Life After Beth and Aubrey Plaza, Molly Shannon again, and a bunch of other like younger and older comedians like Gary Marshall is in this movie. I think this was actually his last film, Gary Marshall, as an actor at least. And yeah, they're all just kind of in all the situations. It's kind of this bizarre mix of like drama and comedy, like because he takes the movie seriously. It's actually a really serious drama about relationships and loss and grief, but then he also just kind of plays it for absurdity and dark comedy too, and lets the actors kind of like in the most serious moments just kind of like throw out lines or do things that just kind of make you laugh, and then he'll just go right back into the drama. So it's really interesting in that way, his style. But I like it. He makes really interesting movies.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Like he knows his premise is very high concept.
Yeah, and he tries to have fun with it, but at the same time, like tries to take it completely seriously too.
Oh man.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I like Jeff Baena. I think he's a really talented newer filmmaker. It's only those 3 movies that he's made so far. And I don't know about Little Hours, but the first 2 he did, Life After Beth and Joshi, were both produced by American Zoetrope.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he's in good with the Coppolas, apparently.
That's right on. Also, I want to get a movie produced by American Zoetrope.
That would be cool. Just go buy a bunch of wine.
Yeah, I'll just walk in, be like, Francis, I like this. You know, we should
how'd you like to sponsor a film where your wine could be featured?
I will buy this wine if you give me like $1 million to make a movie.
You're just like, okay.
Shit, joke's on you. I sold a bottle of wine.
He's just wasted.
Hopefully, I'll have to get him really drunk so I get him to agree to that.
And then last thing I watched this week, I've got quite a few this episode.
All right.
Last thing though, which I did want to give a shout out to, because we're coming up towards the end now, where you got to get out for work.
Yeah, it's almost 9. Yeah.
Yeah. But the last thing I wanted to mention, another thing I watched on Netflix, I watched Matt Groening's new show.
Oh, I've been wanting to see that.
Yeah, Disenchantment.
Mm-hmm. How was it? Does it measure up to Simpsons and Futurama?
I'm not quite sure. I had kind of a mixed reaction to it. I liked it. I definitely liked it. And I've actually watched it through a couple times. So I really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. But it's very different from anything Matt Groening has done up to this point. Because I'm a big fan of The Simpsons. That's one of my favorite shows ever. And I think that's one of the funniest shows ever. And I'm a big fan of Futurama. That's one of the funniest shows ever. Disenchantment, I thought was going to be kind of in the same vein as those other 2 shows. Like The Simpsons is kind of the parody of the all-American family sitcom, like Leave It to Beaver and Brady Bunch, that kind of like wholesome stuff, kind of like turned on its head. Like, this is what the real American family is like. They're dysfunctional and crazy and everything goes wrong. And then Futurama was kind of like the parody of science fiction, turning all those cliches on their head. Disenchantment, I thought, was going to be along the same lines, just like a parody of fantasy stuff.
Yeah, that's the impression that I have from the promotional stuff I've seen online and on like every time I see the preview on Netflix, is it seems like the Futurama Simpsons approach, but to medieval era, like
Yeah, and like fantasy tropes and
mhm.
storytelling. So when I started it, the first couple episodes, I didn't think it was bad, but as I was watching it, I was kind of like, this isn't really as funny as The Simpsons. Nor is it really as funny as Futurama. And so I was kind of disappointed by that it didn't really have like the same amount of jokes or like a really solid, amount of laughs that it was getting per episode. It's kind of like, it's not great, but I don't hate it. I like the world that it creates. The voice cast is really good. You got a lot of good reliables in there, like Billy West voicing a wizard, John DiMaggio, the voice of Bender, voicing a king. He's really good.
Mm-hmm.
And like Eric Andre voicing a demon and Abby Jacobson as the princess. They're all really good. And their characters, I thought were really engaging. So I kept watching, because I was enjoying those elements. And I was it kind of wound up surprising me because I thought it would be like Futurama or Simpsons, where each episode was kind of its own self-contained thing. Turns out it's actually kind of like, it's got this story that it's telling, over each episode. So each episode kind of has its own story, but it's all very much connected to this larger story that's telling over the whole show. And that really surprised me because Matt Groening's never really done anything like that before, where there's a strict continuity where what happens at the end of the previous episodes leads to very specific consequences and heavily affects what happens in the next episode, and all of it carries over. And there's a very specific arc that it's following. So I was kind of surprised by that. And the more I watched it, the more I felt like maybe this isn't intended to be like just a straightforward comedy like his previous shows. It seems like this is much more invested in trying to tell a story. And in the last few episodes, it's full on dramatic in a lot of spots. I wouldn't go so far as to call it a drama. It still is, very funny the whole way through, but it's very much focused on, trying to tell a story, trying to take the characters to interesting places, and trying to have like some really surprising, dramatic twists, especially in like the last couple episodes. I have to admit, the last 2 episodes in particular, and it's interesting the way Netflix is releasing this. They've got 10 episodes out right now, which came out a couple days ago. And this is being called Part 1, like not Season 1. It's Part 1.
Okay.
And apparently there's another batch of episodes that's going to come out later that is going to be Part 2. And I don't know how many parts they're planning, but obviously they've thought this whole thing out, that it's not just going to be kind of like Simpsons, where it's like, we don't know where it's going to go. We're just going to start doing it.
Yeah.
It seems like they've thought very carefully about like where this is going and what they're building towards. And once I kind of like got halfway through the show and kind of readjusted, like, oh, okay, I get it. Like, this isn't like Futurama or The Simpsons. This is something else. When it got to the last 2 episodes, there are some plot twists in the last 2 episodes that I have to admit completely shocked me, that I really did not see coming. And I got to give the show credit for that it actually invested me in the characters and the story to the point where when it got to 2 specifically 2 very critical moments, I thought I knew exactly what was going to happen. Like, oh, okay, the character's going to make this decision, and then that's going to resolve everything properly, and then we can move on to the next episode. And instead, something completely different happens that I did not see coming. And that made me go like, holy shit. Well, like, what does this mean for the next episode? And I watched the next episode. I watched the last episode. And again, I was kind of like, okay, well, obviously, like, this needs to happen, or this character, is going to do this thing. Again, something completely different happened. And the show, Part 1, ends on this really big cliffhanger that made me like, well, shit, I got to find out what the next part is. Like, I'm really invested in this. I really want to find out like where this is going to go in Part 2, because some really bold stuff happens. Some really unexpected stuff happens that takes it in a completely different direction than I was expecting. So that really surprised me about it. It's not like anything Matt Groening has ever done before.
Yeah,
it really was not what I was expecting either.
That sounds interesting. I haven't seen a whole lot of The Simpsons. I mean, I've probably seen several seasons worth, Futurama, though, I've seen through like 4 or 5 times. I love Futurama.
The whole series?
Yeah. And I know like there are some moments in Futurama that go for drama. Like there's a couple really big moments. I remember there's one specifically where Bender is like, he finds out that he's gonna die one day, so he goes on this like trip with Hermes and finds out like where he came from. Like that, like there's some really poignant emotional stuff in that one. But I mean, it's all episodic though, so kind of like whatever they need to happen for their idea of the episode. Like there's some episodes where Leela and Fry are all like lovey-dovey with each other, than other episodes where they're just with other people and they don't really explain what happened in between because it doesn't really matter. So I guess that was basically what I was expecting from this new one.
Me too.
Stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad I watched it through a second time too, because I was able to better appreciate what the show was doing, because they really do set everything up. Like there are so many hints dropped in the first couple episodes that I just wasn't paying attention to, because I was just like, oh, funny, haha, Matt Groening show. And I just put it on and I didn't really pay attention to it. It's kind of like, this isn't really as funny as Futurama. But I'm glad I kept watching it. And now I'm glad I watched it through again, because watching those first couple episodes, I was like, oh my God, they're setting this thing up that's going to pay off later, or they're mentioning this detail that I thought was just inconsequential, and it turns out that's really significant in the second half of part 1. So it's really interesting to me that they really carefully thought it out, and that Groening's trying something very different with this show.
Yeah, I hope to check it out here real soon.
Yeah, it's worth watching, and it's an easy watch. You know, I like Groening's animation style. It's really charming. I love the big eyes and the huge overbites that all the characters have. And the world is, completely silly and ridiculous, and the voice acting's great, and the characters are really engaging and funny. And yeah, it's an easy one to just put on and watch. You don't really, it's not a challenge, to pick up everything that it's giving you. And then it takes some really interesting twists towards the end that I think will take viewers by surprise. Certainly took me by surprise. So I think it's an easy one to watch because it's Groening, and Matt Groening knows how to make an entertaining show. But it's also really engaging. Like, you get invested in it at the same time. At a certain point, I think you'll find yourself going, like, once you watch an episode, like, holy shit, like, where's it going to go from here? Like, you'll find yourself getting really into it. That's definitely what happened with me.
That's good. Yeah, not a lot of shows have made me do that. We have to be like, oh, I have to watch that next episode right away. I gotta know what happens.
Yeah, I've never really been that kind of viewer. Like, there's so many shows now that people are just like, oh my God, have you seen this? Have you seen that? And like, for some reason, I never really feel the urge to watch those shows, or like, I start them and it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is good. I can appreciate that this is well made. Maybe I'll watch something else now.
Yeah, or everyone tells me I have to watch Game of Thrones. I've never seen any episode of that. And,
yeah, neither have I.
I'm sure it's a fine show, but I'm not interested.
Yeah. For some reason, it's just not my kind of storytelling. The episodic television stuff. I find like comedy stuff or animation really easy to watch. That's the kind of stuff like I'll put on Simpsons. I'll put on Futurama. Like, that's the more comedic stuff is the kind of stuff I like. So Disenchantment kind of bamboozled me in that way, that I just thought it would be a funny animated show, and then I wound up getting invested in it. Like, after I watched one episode, it was like, damn it, well, now I got to watch the next one.
Well, good.
Yeah, that was a pleasant surprise. So I would recommend people check that one out too. Hello, Tim Nelson.
There I am. My phone was just telling me that I'm in low power mode now.
Okay. Well, we should probably sign off. So
yeah, we gotta wrap it up.
Okay. Well, any last minute things you want to add?
I love you.
I love you too.
No, I don't really have anything more to say. So,
all right. Any plans for what you're gonna watch over the next week?
No. I'm still hoping to go see Black Klansman. I'm still really hoping to get out to see that one.
Hopefully you do.
Yeah, hopefully. And I don't think there should be any issue. But I think I said that last week too, and I still didn't go. But I hope to see it. I want to see it in theaters just because I want to support Spike Lee. So
yeah, I'm sure it'd be an interesting one to discuss too. I'd be curious to hear what you thought of it if you do see it.
Yeah, I since last week you highly recommended Quiz Show, so that one's kind of on my number one thing to watch next. So
yeah, Quiz Show,
the next one I watch,
and End of the Tour. I would recommend putting high up on that list as well.
Okay.
Got any ones for me that I should try and watch for next week?
It's a lot of pressure.
Does nothing spring right to mind?
No. If I had prepared something, well, I hope that you and your manager go see Mission Impossible.
Okay, yeah.
So I'll just stick with Mission Impossible. That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to make that a priority then.
All right.
All right. Well, I guess if that's all we have for this week, we can sign off. I've been Disregarding Henry. I don't know when you'll see more videos posted from me in the future. Channel's not dead. And yeah, we'll keep doing this show every week because it's a lot of fun. And definitely check out Bretflix's channel as well. You can...
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, but yeah, check me out. I have a video that I'm going to post tomorrow. It's my one on the village. Just whenever it is, I wake up and upload it. Who knows when the fuck that's going to be? But
you also just posted one on A Quiet Place too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did post that a few days ago, so you can check that out for sure.
Yeah, the link is in the description for all these videos. You can find the link there. Watch the stuff on his channel. Yeah,
and subscribe while you're at it too.
Yeah, do that too.
Yeah.
And other than that, I think I'm good. You good?
Yeah, I'm good. You good?
I'm good.
Good.
All right.
Yeah, I guess I'll just see you next Wednesday then.
All right. See you next Wednesday.